Hola, buenas tardes, bienvenidas, bienvenidos a este tercer día de actividades de FemLab. FemLab es un programa de conciertos y actividades de formación protagonizadas por mujeres que actualmente operan en el ámbito de la producción musical electrónica en México y Europa. Este es, como acabo de decir, nuestro tercer día de actividades. Agradecemos la iniciativa del Centro Cultural de España y también ha sido una iniciativa apoyada por el Fondo Europeo para la Cultura UNIC, Casa del Lago, y en esta primera edición, el Instituto Italiano de Cultura en México. Tengo el gusto de estar aquí con las dos artistas que forman parte de este primer encuentro, Sarmen Almond y Martina Bettoni, y voy a presentarlas muy brevemente. Sarmen Almond utiliza la voz y su relación con las nuevas tecnologías para crear composiciones y descomposiciones de la personalidad en el escenario. Ella persigue una búsqueda constante de las infinitas posibilidades vocales que el cuerpo humano lanza como instrumento, así como reflejo de estas sonoridades en espacios físicos e imaginarios. Sarmen ha actuado en México, Aberdeen, Londres, Belfast, Francia, Sevilla, Edimburgo, Praga, Manchester, Falmouth, Sheffield, La Haya, Utrecht, York, Barcelona, Singapur, entre otros. Martina Bertoni comenzó a tocar el cello a temprana edad y posteriormente realizó entrenamiento académico. Su carrera se ha desarrollado alrededor de la música experimental y la producción musical para cine, por lo que sus interpretaciones en el cello han aparecido en numerosos discos, películas y series de televisión. El enfoque de su trabajo como solista se basa en la deconstrucción de la relación con su propio instrumento, combinado el sonido acústico con procesos análogos, digitales y de síntesis. Nuestra mesa de discusión el día de hoy hablaremos de encuentros telemáticos, corporalidades, intercambios estéticos. And I will switch to English now. So hello, Sarmen and Martina. So happy to be with you here in our third day of activities of FemLab.
Thank
Hi,
you so very
Lena.
much.
I'm very happy. Thank you for the invitation.
Same here. Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's pretty amazing.
So we've been talking actually about some of these themes already in your master classes and previously before we were going live. So it's not, and I've been also, I was happy to see and experience and enjoy your master classes. And I see that you have a couple of things in common that I'm sure will come out today in our talk. So the way that we're going to go through this discussion panel, I'm going to ask some questions and then we can take 5 minutes and 5 minutes. And of course, we will see where the discussion takes us. So our first question has to do with corporeality. And it's how do you involve your corporeality in the technical and emotional execution of your instrument? So it's something that I already heard you talk about. So Sarmen, would you like to start?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, I was thinking in this question, how do I incorporate the body? I think the question for me would be, or the sentence, the idea would be that I cannot separate my body from my practice and from the technique and from the emotional state. I was talking a little bit about it during the master class. I was saying that for me, my body is my instrument. From this instrument that is my body, I can produce voice, which I refer to as the invisible body. I like to feel the voice like a part of unity, of psychosomatic unity. I think that my body is, of course, my bones, the flesh, but also my mind, my brain, and my emotions. And I cannot break into pieces this unity. And whenever I train, well, these days, whenever I can, rehearse, train, or create, I always think in my desires, in my ideas, but also in how I can incorporate these ideas, how can I achieve these ideas through my body. If I don't have this connection, I think I wouldn't be able to create. And I feel the body is like a complete network of complex relationships. So and I cannot dismember or tear apart this part, my instrument from my work. So I think it's completely involved. That would be the answer. I cannot really think apart. I mean, I know that sometimes we have voices without bodies. If we hear compositions, but I also believe that in a metaphor, voices can create bodies and bodies can create voices in imaginary spaces. So I think these are really connection, and you cannot separate those things.
Thank you, Sarmen. Martina.
Yeah, for me, I'm a little bit on the same page. So for me, the physical experience when I'm playing, it's always ground zero. So it's always the very first point, because of course I play the cello, and physically it's a very challenging instrument. For me, playing live is always very, very challenging with this project, because I play the cello, but I also have to run the computer and run all the pedals and the synthesizers. So for me, the whole experience is about control. So also the emotional side for me, it's very connected to control of my body. And really all this emotional drive that is happening when I'm playing. It's always focused on keeping the discipline, and it's very strange because there is this body action, but in a sense my body becomes a sort of a MIDI controller of what is happening, because I have to control the cello, I have to control the computer, and I have to control the synthesizer. And making this happening allows me to, it's very, very strange, but allows me to hear my music while it's happening with a completely different hearing point. And that's for me absolutely interesting. It's absolutely incredible, because takes away a lot of let's call it rock and roll mythology, in a sense, when you're playing, when you're on stage. For me, it's all about astraying my emotion and astraying my hearing while I'm playing.
So a completely embodied experience playing your instruments for both of you, but at the same time, as you mentioned, having to overcome, first you have all this technical, of course, proficiency. So it's already overcoming the technical proficiency to be able to explore it emotionally in this completely embodied situation. And very different, I think, for both of you, because similar, but at the same time different, because you have to be controlling like all these different things at the same time, and it's interesting to say that at the same time, it's very expressive, the use of your body and your music. And at the same time, like you said, is all this controlling and being able to have everything in order and in synchrony. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Both of you have a musical education background that began with training as an instrumentalist. At what point did you decide to incorporate electronic devices and software for producing and editing your music? And what are the limits and scope of these mediations in your production? And please describe your composition and creation process. So we can take quite a while in this long question. Sarmen, would you like to start?
It's a big question, so many questions.
Yes, a big questions.
Because I would like to just take a little bit of what Martina was mentioning, because I think it's very important, the act of listening. And whenever you are on a stage, for example, with this I mean, with this, I feel that the listening is not only with the ears, of course, is listening with all your body and you are with the pedals or with the computer or with the synthesizer, and you are listening to your emotions. In my personal case, I'm listening to my breathing. Well, I need to breathe, and I need to give voice to utter sound. I feel that I love this term, this concept, the embodiment of voice. Like, so you need to give. Well, it's not that you need to give; it's inevitable to give body to the voice. So you are moving because you are making a sound, but at the same time you have the hand here, but you are feeling that you need to breathe again, and so it's a completely, well, as I said, like a network of really complex connections that you cannot just dismantle or to put apart. And I'm coming to the question, to this second idea. Well, I was trained as a singer at the beginning, composer as well, and then at the same time I was studying electronic music productions. So it was like I was. It was easy in a way for me to be in contact with softwares of music production, from like Reason, Propelhead, Cubase, Pro Tools, stuff like that. I use a lot of Cubase, for example, for production, but I feel that the moment in which I really thought I want to explore to a little bit more my sound was when I started studying, training, in extended techniques and with my voice. And I feel that was the moment in which I really understood how I wanted my voice to sound, and what I wanted to express with it. And at the same time, I started to have this desire of giving voice to to sounds that were in my mind, but that I couldn't express with my organic body. So I chose to start working with programming, and I thought, okay, maybe this sound that is or something, I cannot with my vocal folds and my body to utter that sound, but I can create that sound through technology, using technology. And I feel I started using these instruments as tools to give to complement, to have a conversation with other voices. And in my composition process, I use a lot of improvisation. I write a lot, more graphic scores, and I also feel that the years have passed, and you discover not as a singer. I feel like, well, I always introduce myself as, okay, yes, I am a musician, but I am more now a voice performer or an intermediate artist, because I feel that a lot of other disciplines, theater, dance, movement, and have been incorporated in my work. And it's not just about the technical or the technology, the synthesizers or the programming. It's also about other resources and other tricks that you take, and inspiration that you take from other disciplines and other arts.
Thank you, Carmen. Martina?
So, concerning me, I've been trained as a classical cello player, and at the same time, I mentioned that in the masterclass, I started working a lot as a session musician, as a hired musician in studio recordings, recording studio, sorry. And I also worked a lot in the soundtrack production. I always been like a studio mouse. So I was always fascinated by spending a lot of time just watching other people working, sound engineers working in the studio. So everything I learned from about electronic music production, I learned it by watching, basically by watching other people operating. And then when it was the time for me to start my solo project, um, was many years ago. It took me a long time to understand where do I want to go and how and which instrument, how do I want it to work. Because for me, just playing the cello, only the instrument itself is a constriction, because always drags me to practices I wanted to get rid of. So for me, electronic music production was a way of liberating myself from these practices. Otherwise, I would have always been a classical cellist, and I didn't want to be that. So for me, yeah, electronic music just helped me to get rid of these physical constrictions that my instrument gave me. So I started just using electronic music tools since the very beginning of my sketching solo project. And I have to say, I came to use the softwares. For example, I always use Logic, and I started using it as an instrument itself. So I use the cello as a generator of sound. It's a sort of my analog, very analogic synthesizer, a very ancient synthesizer. And I use Logic as an instrument because I like to write with Logic. I like to write with plugins. And for me, it's the possibilities, ideally, that this process give me are infinite. For me, the only limits and the only boundaries about electronic music production is my own capacity and my own ability of learning, because I haven't been studying anything else than maths or computer programming. So, and I really want to learn more. I really want to use Max MSP. I want to learn how to be able to program and to code. But for me, that's the challenge. So I really want to learn more. But yeah, that requires time, requires a lot of space, mental space. And there is also life that comes in, with logistics. But yeah, I would say that I'm a firm lover of possibilities that electronic music production can give us.
Thank you, Martina. And this is something that I heard from both your master classes in common. I heard that you did incorporate electronic devices and software in order to liberate and in order to make it as an extension of what the organic body cannot do, like what Sarmen said. So limitless possibilities. And I also wrote something down that was quite intriguing for me about your composition process of both of you of working with one note. I heard Salmen, on her masterclass working with one note. And I heard you yesterday, Martina, as well, about the possibilities of one note. Could I ask you a bit about that? Because I found it, as I said, really intriguing, in common between both of your creative processes.
Well, yesterday,
I love that statement, by the way.
I think it's funny that we both had this thing in common. Maybe we were connected,
yes.
Telematic, actually. But I think I used this example during the master class as a way of saying that, and I think I said it, that it's not that it doesn't matter. I would just say it this way, but it doesn't matter what you have. What matters is what you do with what you have. And I was giving the example of, okay, imagine that is only one grain of rice, and with this little, you can paint it, you can cook it, you can eat it, you can, you can the many break into pieces and make a little small, I don't know, bracelet for well, and I was thinking that in composition, sometimes I start with a lot of ideas, and I say, okay, calm down, and what do you really want to express? And most of the time, I cannot translate it into words, so I translate it into sound. But it is also very different how, in my personal case, how I compose, if I can say, or I prepare a session for a live performance, and the way that I compose for a piece that it's gonna be, for example, that I'm working in Cubase and that I can edit and put plugins and VST things to do. It's very different. But I think whenever you can put a lot of spices and ingredients, but at the same time, whenever you go and you look this from far away, you discover that there's one motif or one reason that takes you to that composition. And I think that's why I chose yesterday to use only one note, because at the end of the day is one. You can have many reasons, but there's one thing that you want really to explore in each composition. For me, would it be almost, I think I would say 99% sure, it would be impossible to give everything in one composition, to voice everything. It wouldn't have sense also for me. So it's just go, stop, breathe, look from afar and say, okay, I'm going to use this thing. And of course, the composition itself asks you to put more ingredients, to cook a little bit more, to give a little bit more of this, and it's also about the intuition and the listening again. I don't know if I answered the question, but
yes, I think you answered with the grain of rice.
okay.
Thank you, Martina.
So for me, it's a mixture of psychological issues and a search for simplicity and what is my music's temperament. Because I'm a very anxious person. And as long as I had to approach my creative moments, well, I remember also when I was a student, or yesterday when I was trying to learn how to play in these jazz bands in which everybody was doing bebop, hard bop, a lot of notes, and I have to compete with these people. And I have to say I'm the least competitive person possibly in the universe. So when somebody talks a lot, I have nothing more to say in this sense. So I want to be there with something that it's able to represent me, but it's also very simple for everybody to listen, to grab and to take space. For example, I take this example about the jazz big band. So everybody's doing solos, everybody's playing a lot of notes, which is very challenging for a cello player. And for me, taking the space was opening the door and just play one note. Like one long note, which is completely out of context in that context. And I noticed that's a grabber, that's what was working. So to be simple and clean and completely out of what everybody else is expecting. For example, I make another metaphor. You have a painting from Renaissance, so there are a lot of people, leaves, animals, fruits. What if I just draw with a yellow neon marker a line through it? Because if I would draw another mushroom or an animal or another character, this is going to be just another character in the story, maybe not the main character. If I just draw this mark, everybody's going to notice that. And also that taught me how to be simple, how not to be stressed about telling too much. Because when we compose, I mean, for what is my personal experience, I always give a lot of ideas at the very beginning, the same as you said, Sarman. You always put a lot in the pot, and then you just realize that maybe it's a little bit too much. You don't need so many ingredients. You just need one very good ingredient, one very good and simple idea, and then you can give that idea time and space to breathe, because you have to breathe when you play. Your music needs to breathe. It's not just you have just to throw in a lot of elements. That's become suffocating, I guess. And for me, this is a very challenging process. But in the end, it's what makes sense.
And thank you, Martina. Listening to both of you right now talk about the one note and the simplicity and of having one very big and good idea instead of having many. I thought about how the endless possibilities that also working with one note can create in making space from sound. What you just mentioned, Martina, of just that one note would probably expand and shape space through sound, whereas perhaps many different things just create confusion. So that's and I think that I've also heard that from Sarmen as well. Sarmen's composition and performance is very, it creates space also from sometimes following that one idea through sound. I would like to ask a couple more questions, if that's all right, about your composition process, because I wrote them down yesterday. I loved what Sarmen said about the voice thinking. So could you tell us a bit more about that, Sarmen, please?
Yeah. Well, you paid attention.
Of course I did. I took notes.
Like, no, perfect. I was thinking, well, I think voice thinks in terms of you don't need to use language. I think I was writing down this idea because trained as a singer, in this canon training, or classical singer, jazz singer, you find yourself always singing songs, lyrics, and that is good. I mean, I also sing songs, of course. I have a band, that's another story, but I like to work with the idea that voice, the sound itself, the voice, this vibration, thinks, and also makes you feel things. And also sometimes I write, but whenever I write, I like to write words, but I also like to write the sound. Is the way how maybe I say I'm writing my thesis now, and there's a part in which I will be talking about some compositions, and I was saying, voice also thinks. Voice also gives ideas, like, and I start writing how the piece starts. Ma, 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 no, and then I talk about the images that voice give us. And I feel this way of thinking is also to give the power to the sound of voice as a transformative being. Like, it's not the voice itself, but the voice also is vibration. The voice is a being that gives birth to images, to feelings, to sensations. And if I say that voice thinks, it means that I need to listen to it, because in each sound there's something. And whenever I listen and I hear the meaning of that sound, it takes me to a different path to take decisions, and to continue maybe my improvisation or my composition. I love, for example, for improvisation. You know that I work a lot with this, and whenever I'm with this on a stage, I always say that improvisation comes from listen to the imps, and the imps are these little creatures, duende, the little duendes that are around. And for me, is also listen to the voices around you, because those voices are telling you what you need to do next. It's not me. I'm thinking. It's the voice is thinking, and she's asking me for something to give birth.
Wow, that sounds a very complex process, Armen, because it's you, it's Armen, but it's also those many voices that Armen is and is not at the same time. So in a way, it sounds to me that it's you creating a dialogue where you kind of separate yourself from your voice. You are your voice, but at the same time, you're not. And you're listening to that voice as a separate being, or different beings as duendes, as you say. So that sounds really amazing.
I would just say something that for me, this, I feel whenever I say my voice, I try to tend to say I'm thinking about it all the time, but it's like, it's not my voice, it's my voices. I feel we all have many voices, and that also gives me the opportunity to be whatever, not whoever, whatever I desire, and maybe to be those things that I don't want to be, but I am, but that I am, and to accept that.
So in a way, the voice thinks is a way of liberating yourself from any possible constraint, and the possibility of being human, non-human, animal, stone, air. So how did you come across? Well, you have to tell us more. But let me ask Martina one more question, and then please, I have to ask about how did this happen? The voice things. It was probably something that didn't just happen in a day, Sarmen. No, I think. Finding that process.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, and Martina, I'd like to ask something to you as well. Yesterday, I was listening to you say that noise has been a very powerful weapon for you, and as an element of surprise. And I was listening to you talk and give about all these bands and different people who, in a way, help you find the way of liberating, in a sense, from this tradition, and being able to approach your instrument, as an analog synthesizer, as you say. But also, if you found a noise, something very powerful that I guess helped you also to find that different path. Could you please tell us a bit about that? Noise is a powerful weapon.
Yes, it's for me, it's the most powerful weapon that I have, because it introduces an element of surprise and discomfort, in a sense. In my own musical history as a listener, just a passionate music listener, I always been attracted to those figures who were more scary, or like that could really leave me breathless when I was listening or watching them, because I need this type of discomfort when I'm listening or when I'm making music, because it's a way of, first of all, liberating myself by the fact that I can make noise, and noise is composition. Noise is a tool. Noise has a personality. Noise is something. It's like Sarmen voices. So it's a part of me as a musical being, and to be able just to have it, to exercise it as much as I want, without being scared of creating noise itself. For me was the most most revealing experience, musical experience, that I could possibly have. And to be able to use it in a melodic sense, is in a harmonic sense, I still keep on finding it fantastic. It's absolutely surprising how much musicality lays in noisy events in reality. Um, Especially if you live in cities, I mean, that becomes your own personal soundtrack. And that familiarity then becomes a part of my musical experience. It has to be connected to the fact that I really like this experience of um, displacement.
So liberation through noise and through the many voices. Thank you
Yes.
very much. And I wrote many more things as well, but I think we can move on to our next block of questions. And then if we have time, I will ask. So the next one is very challenging and and I think I will ask question by question so we can really take our time to say everything we want or say about it. So this has to do with these times and all these challenges and that we've been facing over the past, how many months? I don't know, many months, 10? Something like
Yes.
that.
We are
So,
starting the 10th month here.
yeah, so I think we can already say something about it. No, it's no longer something new, but something that we've been working and dealing with lately. So first question, what have been the main challenges that both of you have faced during these times of isolation and the performance of your music? I guess we can start with that piece of the question. So performing, what have been the main challenges for you these past months? Sarmen.
I think, well, it's not long enough to get used to it. 10 months, I think, are not, I cannot get used to it, not yet. I have hope. And I think the biggest challenge for me has been to cope with myself, uh, while wanting to have contact with other human beings, with other people, and mainly wanting to go out into the world. I think that has been a very big challenge to accept that I have to perform in a different way. Uh, and it is not that I don't want to perform in a different way, it's just that I really miss the human, the contact, and also to rethink about the way in which I do things in order to transmit my ideas and to be able to convey what I want to share with others, because maybe it is not about what I want to express, but also how the other perceive me as a music creator. So I think I think that has been the big challenge. Of course, the composition process, but I don't know if you're going to ask more about that later, or I can.
Yes, please go ahead.
Well, I think the way in which I have been composing and the pieces that I have been launching and releasing are different completely, because I mean, I would say that I like the two formats. Of course, you can record yourself playing, as a film of your own concert, but also during this concert, I like to use a lot of visuals in my concerts. Sometimes I have projections on top of my body, and how others are going to perceive this, I need to think where I'm going to put the camera, all the much more technical things. On the other side, I have been working in more audiovisual pieces, in which it's not a real performance, but I need to build the performance in a different way. What do I want them to look at? Is it important the my lungs? Is it important the mouth? Is it important my hands moving or pressing keys? What do I think is the most important thing? Which is very subjective, but at the same time is okay. Then whenever you launch the piece, what the others think about it. And a good opportunity has been also to have the feedback of the others, because maybe you were not thinking about I don't know, something, and the audience gives you feedback and it's like that is what I wanted, or it's like, oh, I didn't know about it. So you are reconfiguring your own way of performing, but at the same time of composing and presenting yourself, and to trying to feel that, also trying to feel that you feel something, trying to in front of no one. We were, I think before, no, we were talking about this. How do you perform in front of the void? Like, does it have a meaning? Does it have a sense? How do you project yourself?
Thank you, Sarmen. Yes, and that is what was the second part of the question, which I will just read out loud so Martina can answer to it as well. So yes, the challenges during these times, but as well as the challenges in your relationship, and the relationship that you established with your audience during a concert. That is something Sarmen just mentioned right now. So Martina, please.
Yeah. So what is my experience? It's I have to say I've never been a very social animal, and I tend to be still a very reclusive being. Also for me, as I mentioned before, playing live is very physically is absolutely exhausting. So it's an experience that then I have to I need like a couple of days to get back, and also I have to mention that, like, 2019, I had been recovering from an exhaustion. I had a burnout experience, so I had to spend basically the whole year in my house without actually having the energy of going out. So for me, this 2020 have been weirdly familiar in a sense. So for me, I didn't have to stop everything because I was trying to start again, but I found myself in a condition of complete suspension. And since for me, every type of social interaction was very complicated, I mean, now it's all very much better, but so in a sense, I had a sort of a official alibi to take care of my own space and to set up my own practices as I wanted, without being forced to feel that I was doing something wrong, that I was missing the beat in a sense. So this is a little bit weird, but I wouldn't use the word that I enjoy that, because it's not it's not the right word. But in a sense, I kept on surfing the sea with the same speed, just waiting for something to change. And concerning the performance aspect, surely what I miss, and what I would absolutely keep on missing, is that when you perform, there is a sort of a sacred environment. It's a sacred moment, and this lockdown, this pandemic seems to have robbed of the sacred in this type of situation. So everything is just left on the shoulder of the performer themselves, that has to engage with the void, with a screen, maybe in a space that it's not a venue. So everything is mixed. There is no more the sacrality of the venue, for example. There is not anymore this energy, that this channeling of special energy that is happening when you perform, between you as a performer, the audience, and also the crew of people who you're working with. So when you set up a concert, you have a whole day of talking with the technicians. There is a there is an environment, there is a special word that is beating in that moment, and this is not happening anymore. And so it's this is very confusing. This is also, I mean, it seems that everything is becoming more and more mundane in a sense. So we are left in our rooms with our screen, and we have to be able to find enjoyment in a representation of something that was we were used to, and that's the most challenging aspect. For example, if you go into a venue to see a concert, to see and hear a concert, you also have the PA, the vibe, like the physical vibration of that amount of sound that now comes out, if you're lucky, from your home theater, if you have good speakers. Otherwise, you have your headphones, and that also takes away a lot of, I wouldn't say the beauty, but the beauty has to be moved somewhere else, and that's very challenging for the performer. Yeah, it's I'm very confused by this this lack of sacrality. It's very hard to exchange energies with somebody that is not there. You don't know how many people you have in front of you. For example, yesterday it wasn't a performance, but during the class you actually cannot see the faces of the people who you're talking with, and it's makes it very, very strange. I mean, the energies you have to take are coming from they need to come from somewhere else. I have a long experience as a touring musician. So I mean, I spent, like, I would say, like at least 15 years, like, playing on stage with other people, for other people. So for me, like, the concert was part of my daily reality. And now to find a new way to reconfigure that, it's I really don't know. It's a big question mark.
Thank you, Martina. And so it's been a dislocation of space, time, and, performances and event, as you both said, and finding your way around it. Not having that special day where you go and talk with everybody, prepare yourself, do whatever it is that you do when you prepare yourself for a performance, go in the car, take your instruments, drive there, talk with people, after that, engage with people, go and have, I don't know, drinks, and all that. It's all that sacred space and all that making this time for that event to occur. And also, as you mentioned, I think something that has been very complicated is there's no resonance with the people who are there. So we all know that the giving a concert is this sort of a resonant relationship that you establish with whoever is listening. And that, of course, changes as well what you do in your performance. And I'm sure that has been very, like we said, before we were going live, it's this giving a performance to the void, and it's who's listening, and how do you go about that? So Simon just mentioned, having the feedback. Yes, please give me feedback, say something, right? And also something that you mentioned, Simon, having this challenge of recording these performances that are almost like, not like a video, but thinking about where's the camera, do I want them to see this or that, and in a way that has changed a lot also, like the spontaneity of spontaneous, things that happen also, I guess, when you are in a live performance. Everything is very, please, Simon.
I was thinking that it is not strange only for us as creators, as musicians. Is also, I would say that it must be, I think, or it should be strange for the audience. I mean, whenever you as a listener, as an audience, whenever I love to go to concerts, I miss that. I don't miss only playing. I miss listening to others and to be there. And also, you as an audience prepare. You take a shower. You dress in a specific way, but and you are thinking, oh, tonight or this afternoon I'm going to, and you are excited because you're going to see someone that you want to see. And whenever you are in the venue, I mean, it doesn't matter if you play or if you are in the audience. There's this reciprocity, I think, that makes you, for example, if you are playing, you can look into the eyes, and you can see. Maybe you are not 100% of. You don't know 100% what they are feeling, but you can guess a little bit, or if they are moving the head, or if they are like this, or if, it's just a different environment. And I'm not saying that this is terrible, this is bad. It's just different. But I feel I'm as well confused as Martina. I don't know if I do know that I wouldn't like to be this way forever. I think we're going to incorporate these kind of things in the future, in the present. I'm not. I think I have started to stop thinking about the future, or I try. My future is the present now, but I also think that this gives us the opportunity to realize that we are visceral beings, and that even with the communication with technologies, we are still sensitive and sentient beings. And if we are not robots, I think we all, or the majority, we will be feeling this way. I mean, this is amazing how we can communicate Berlin or Italy, Mexico, and how, but the contact, the experience of the body, the senses, how do you feed all your senses, not only your sight or your listening, if you are lucky, as Martina said, if you have good speakers, or only your headphones, but how you feed all the sensations that you have whenever you experience a big I forgot the word, deep tones in your stomach. How you're going to, how are we feeding those necessities as human and sensitive visceral beings?
Yes, of course, when you can sometimes even watch a concert on your phone.
The smell, the everything.
Definitely. So that takes us to our next part of the question. And I think we pretty much talked about it, but what do you consider to be the limits and the scope of the telematic encounters that have occurred in this temporality? But also, I think that we might be able to find different possibilities. I don't know if we know about them yet, but what are your thoughts on this? So, limits and scope of these encounters and possibilities. Have we found any?
Martina,
or Martina, yes.
Sorry.
Or whoever wants to start.
Well, in a sense, this enclosure proved that anyways, we as human beings, as creator beings, are able to provide it. So no one is going to stop people from performing, and no one is going to take the audience away from witnessing a performance, because that's a necessity. And this is a sort of a solid positive element, that no matter what, we can be able to renounce for a while to certain aspects of something, but we don't want to lose that. And this is absolutely positive. I mean, here in Berlin, everybody's just trying to find maybe absurd ways of restarting, going out, restarting opening clubs, restarting partying, and the ideas are absolutely crazy. But that just show that there is, no matter what, we're always gonna be able to try to find out a way. For example, something interesting, this technology show that also we can reach out, and this is like okay, everything is very much on a prehistory now, but for example, the virtual reality, this kind of augmented reality can be, for example, something that can possibly show an opportunity. We were talking before, possibly it's never going to happen that we're gonna go back exactly how it was before. So the world as we were used to perceive it, like the world of music clubs and venues, with the smoke, with the sweat, maybe it's not gonna come back exactly the same. But something else is gonna, it has to start. And I mean, we have just to see that. I mean, for sure, I think that there's gonna be less focus on this body experience because that's too risky. I mean, also the whole economy is gonna change around this. The whole economy about performances, festivals, music club, the whole music business structure is going to change because again, this pandemic showed that we can stop the world for a while, but then that will show which are the weak points. And I think there's going to be a reaction there because that simply proved that the ways it wasn't so sustainable, because in a crisis all the musicians, all the creators are without money, without job, without perspective. Nobody is able to think about the future simply because you cannot plan anything. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. I tend to be a little bit political in this sense, but I guess that's going to be the most interesting challenge that will give us a more interesting future, to see that which chances do we have now to create something that can bring something back, but that can be sustainable for everybody, in order that not to happen anymore, because we cannot cope like in 2 years another pandemic and everything is going to be shut down, locked down again. I think that's the way we should try to find a new perspective to be able to think about the future.
And what are your thoughts on that possible perspective? And also, just out of curiosity, what they've been doing in Berlin, those crazy attempts that you mentioned?
So they were trying to use to reopen. So clubs are closed since March, I guess, and that means that a huge part of the city economy is on hold. So nothing is happening. No cinemas. During the summer, the smaller venues started to open again. Very very small concerts. But in the span of very few weeks, everything had to be closed again. But the big clubs like Berghain, Tresor, everything was closed. For example, it was interesting that Berghain converted itself to a big art gallery. So, okay, we have this empty space in which nobody can come there and dance anymore, but that doesn't mean that the space needs to be closed. And that's also a perspective. So how we can perceive, how can performance happen, in which form? So does it really mean that we have to renounce to all our inputs, like creative inputs, or we can try to find something else to do? For example, some smaller clubs, they're thinking about fast testing, so to provide half an hour quick testing in order to let people, just the healthy people, to be able to gather.
Oh, wow.
And that's also a possibility. Okay, we're all healthy and we can party again, which is which is interesting. I mean, that means that everybody has to become more conscious about his own social responsibility when you engage in creative or entertainment activities. Um, yeah, I mean, there were some places here in Berlin. There is a big conversation going on about new technologies and how these new technologies can help this. For example, the virtual reality can be really a way of, in a moment in which the world is suspended, can we create a space, a virtual space, in which maybe with the support of the technology, we can act inside that space. So this is what is going on, and I think it's absolutely interesting because it puts us in the position to cope and create new ways for the future. Because we realize that nothing is going to go back exactly how it was, and we have to be fast, and it has to be good.
And yes, we have to adapt. And I think also the situation has, we have to think about the others, because that's something that has definitely come up, just from this a simple fact of wearing a mask, if not for yourself, for others. So anyway, that's a very long conversation.
Yeah.
Carmen, limits and scope of these encounters and new possibilities. What do you think?
I agree completely with Martina, the way which we are adapting, and we need to be, I think, responsible as well for us and with others. I mean, what are you wearing, when and where and with who you go to spaces? And I think of course, Berlin is very different to Mexico City. We're here and we experience that it's a completely concrete jungle. It's very wild. Everybody's out, and it's not bad. It's not good. I feel that not only creators, not only musicians and actors, dancers want to perform, but other people want to go out and to share with others. And also, we also need to have an income. And I think the big challenge is how are we going to survive with our economy? We need to rethink, I think, about our practices. But at the same time, I think, okay, we are very lucky because we have at least a computer. We have a space in which we live. We have a roof. We have our clothes. We have things. We can eat things, food. But there's many communities, specifically, in Mexico, I think, of course, around the world, that they don't have the opportunity to have these technologies. And for us, a computer is something that you just get very easily. It's like, okay, you have a computer. All your friends are like, in your computer. But if we go to the reality, we see communities that they don't even have water. So the challenge is, how do we help those communities while doing what we do? Do we inspire from them? But what do we give to those communities so everybody can survive? It's not only the big cities or the artists or the industries. It's like everybody, because the challenge in creation, but also the challenge in the economy and in small communities and in society. No, I think that's a challenge for education, mainly education. And I'm not talking just about universities or institutions, but the education in the house. Now much more population, more children, more. It's very complex what we are living, and I think we cannot just escape and live in our small spaces making music. I think we have to look what is happening outside.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Simon. I think you touched a very important subject and theme here. What has happened nowadays with technology, and this pandemic has been, in a sense, sort of a magnifying glass of situations that were already there. And, it's just made it much more visible. And you just talked about technology. And technology has been, of course, for some, the possibility of us being here, as you said, Mexico and Berlin, in this super exciting encounter. But at the same time, it has limited people from being able even to access their classes or their schools. So what do we do? And I think this is a very big question that it would be that I would like to put out right now. How do we go about making culture democratic? When technology, of course, is this very big thing that has made even more visible the disparities and differences that we have in all our societies.
And I think, for example, today we are here, yesterday and the day before yesterday, giving the master classes. And for me, I was mentioning this during the master class. I said, okay, this is an opportunity for others to learn, maybe not to learn, to listen what Martina and I think, but also this is an opportunity for us to reach more people. But okay, I mean, that I teach as well a lot. I like a lot pedagogy, and how could we go to other communities if the pandemic continues? We cannot just forget about other people living in spaces in which the internet doesn't exist. It's like, okay, we are here, and maybe I dare to say, okay, I don't care about 3D. No, of course I care, because it's part of my thing. I mean, of course, I hope I'm going to experience that, but the 3D is not going to give or to bring water, education, food to others that don't have these resources. It's like it's and I feel we as creators is obliged, or at least for me, to think about it. What do I do? What I don't do? I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah, me personally, I think you're absolutely right, because this crisis is not just it's not a health crisis, but showed that the whole structure of the world, like the Western world, the capitalism, show that these disparities just make society more fragile. And for example, here in Germany, Germany is quite a lucky country, because it has a very, very social, it's a very, very good social welfare. It functions very well. There is a lot of money for culture, a lot of money for social support. For example, I'm Italian, and Italy is very much different. So you really have to struggle with institutions to. There is no money for culture. Here in Germany, the situation is very different, but at the same time, the big discussions here is, as you said, okay, we have to support culture, but we have to face that. People here that are losing their jobs. It's like a global scale. Also, there are huge slices of society which have no access to internet. They're isolated. There is like a mental health crisis lingering. And this is a call for politics. So it's not anymore about we have to make it profitable. We have to make it sustainable. Because before this big pandemic, the big discussion was concerning, for example, with the ecology. So the problem of pollution. And so these are all the big challenges. And I think this pandemic has been like a ring bell for, hey, this is not going anywhere like this, because it's not just about the money and making economy works. It's about avoiding collapse of societies and ecosystems, and we have to make it sustainable. Otherwise, there is really no future, or the future is going to be more and more challenging, more and more complicated, and it's not grim. It is grim, and it's going to be horrible. So, and here the big debate is about, capitalism, as it was before, show that it's not working. Everybody has to have health support, everybody has to have healthcare, access to internet, access to technology, education, water, housing. There is a huge housing crisis in Berlin. And governments have to do something for everybody. So it's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting challenge that societies have to face now. And we as creators, we are responsible to making it sustainable for us. Before I mentioned that this showed the big crisis of the music business. So this pandemic showed how many of the slices of the structures of the music business are really needed for artists to survive. So all this money, for example, Spotify, the whole conversation about streaming. So really, where do creators get their money from the art? How they can survive and make a living, make a future as creators in this type of society? So it's all about exploitation, and it's going to be interesting.
Yes, those are some of the very big questions. And just before we move on to talk about Saturday's performance, I would like to pick up on this thread of sustainability and ask both of you, because I'm sure we've all been changed during these times. But what are your very particular thoughts on sustainability in your own personal creativity and practice? Is that a very big question? Sorry. We can just have open questions. But what are your questions then?
Now, from my point of view, for example, sustainability means being able as a human being to exercise freedom of choices. Maybe I'm a little bit too philosophical, but I can be a creator as long as I have my basic rights, existential rights fulfilled. So if I don't have to work like crazy with a day job to pay a rent, if I have access to healthcare, because me and my husband, he lost his job, so we have to face existential crisis, and of course that takes away all energies, all resources, all investments from our own creativity. Sustainability for me means being able to survive, not only survive, to thrive in an environment that you pay for something and you have something valuable in exchange as a member of a society. So you give your contribution, and that contribution is being valued. For example, we as artists, we are not hobbyists. This is a job, but not in a capitalistic, like material sense. It's what we do, and what we do as a economical value, as a cultural value, as a value for society, as an emotional value. So it's the history of civilization. And it's not just something that, if you're lucky, somebody will exploit and then give something in exchange. That's for me when society works. So when everybody is able to exercise their value together in a society that respects this.
Thank you, Martina. Carmen.
I think I feel the same. For me, sustainability means to be able to feel free and safe, especially in this country, because money doesn't mean that you are safe, and which is another topic. But the crisis has made us to have a big look to that side as well. Sustainability means to feel that I can do whatever I want, but I wouldn't say outside the system, because we are all in the system. Sometimes I feel, okay, I'm an independent artist, but it's funny, whenever I say an independent means that you depend on all the others that go to the concert or buy your music. So it's like you depend more from others. You're not independent, but also to find different alternatives to live in a more peaceful way. And I feel this situation, I mean, these months have also show us that the big industry is a failure. That we want, I don't know if we won't have, or we don't have more of not big festivals. I love big festivals and big concerts, but not more big artists that are paid, I don't know, $100 million when you have 100 million of artists that are paid 100 pesos. So I think it has to change, and it is changing, because more and more people are looking for alternatives, and maybe knowing the classic activities outside the arts. I mean, I know the engineering or in big industries, I don't know, they keep on working in a daily basis. But I feel for us is to find a way to continue doing what we love, and to also to fight to be recognized as a professional humans. That is not, as Martina mentioned, it's just a hobby. This is we enjoy our work, to say something, and we have been passing through many things to be able to do or to create what we create. And we have a voice, and we have statements in every composition, in every creation we launch, and that we share.
Thank you, Salman. And I guess in some way, this situation has helped us. I don't know if I'm going to say something and then regret saying it, but we've been able to reach, at least through telematic encounters, many people, of course, with the possibility of having internet and the computer and this and that. But I myself have feel very lucky to have met many wonderful women artists during these past months, perhaps more than I have in previous years. And at least we could say that's something gained. I don't know. What do you
Positive.
think about that?
Well, crises bring people together,
Yes, exactly.
and that's the positive thing. I mean, they make people able to recognize themselves and say, okay, this is now the moment, now or never. And that's amazing. And this is something that has to be kept in mind, and just keep on. I mean, it's all about, being self-conscious about what it's needed, what we need as a community, as a society, beside, being temporarily in a good situation or not. I mean, it's also fighting, in a sense, when you have the chance for the others that are not as lucky as you. I mean, you mentioned before there are artists who have been normally paid thousands of euro, but vast majority, I mean, here in Berlin, sometimes you play for the audience. You're not being paid. I mean, people just pass their hat. So that's the normality in like small bars. And Berlin is a cool place. It's full of places. So there is always an audience. But at the same time, I do think that, it's a good chance as a community to show that we can configure and redesign something which is better, because we learned that how it was before, it wasn't working. So now we have the chance to be more self-conscious in this.
And that we are not alone.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
that's very important. We are not alone doing or dreaming or creating, that there are many, many others around the world. And that in this particular case, I also, for me, has been a good time to meet other women as well. I think it's crazy how, well, it's not crazy. I think it is the time now or never, in which we are raising, not only, I mean, raising our voices, but also to get together, to reconfigure the way in which we do things, but also the way in which we think, and other possibilities to interact, to have our daily lives.
Sure.
It's not just about our profession. Is about the way in which we live and in which we interact with other human beings.
Well, also, if I can mention one last thing, also this situation proved that, for example, we can reach out better and more far from distance. For example, if I would have to come to Mexico, it would have cost a fortune in terms of logistics, for example, like plane, and that's all money, that's all resources that, in a sense, they can become boundaries for people to travel the world. So this technology, the good side that shows that we can stick together, in a certain sense easier, because we can talk. I can talk with you. We can play even from far away. So these are all positive things that can keep us in mind that we can stick better together as a community.
And I love for us to close at least this part of our panel with these ideas of questioning how we live, how we have lived, what new choices are we making, and that, yes, that we can be together and come together as a community and find empathy, among each other. And I love for us to close our discussion with these ideas. And so thank you for that. So before we move on to asking our audience about if they have any questions for you to answer, could you please just give us a very small preview of our concert on Saturday? Just a sneak peek without telling the whole movie. What are we going to be experiencing, Sarmen?
Okay, I will try to say this in one sentence. No, I don't want to say anything. No, I mean, well, I thought about the concert. I was doing 2 audiovisual pieces before, and this time I decided to do a concert, which for me is different. But I didn't want to stick on the electronics and voice. I will be opening my mouth a cappella, and also with electronic things. That's it. No.
Okay.
So for
But
me,
I should say something. Sorry, no, that I would have liked to play with Martina together live. I really, but voilà, we didn't have time. The distance.
No, and then it's still technologically, we're still working on it, of course.
We'll be able to do that in the future.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully.
Now, concerning me, it's going to be new material, because I'm a restless soul. So I always, I always change my setup. I always change. I'm always playing something new. And since I'm a very shy player, I don't. For me, I mean, I mentioned before, I tend to be a little bit reclusive. So it's going to be the very first time I'm playing new pieces, and in a completely different environment. So it's going to be weird.
But it will be great. We know Paulina Laza was mentioning this yesterday and the day before that we will be playing in a very cool hub designed by Malin Cortez. So I'm quite excited myself to choose my avatar and be able to experience your performance. So before we move on to questions, I just want to remind our audience that this concert will be in the virtual auditory of Casa del Lago, and of course, and this will be at 8 p.m. So from 8 until 9:30. So that's going to be super cool. So thank you very much for being here. We will move on to our questions, but I want to thank you for this very thought-provoking and talk that we just had, and for sharing your processes and your ideas and basically yourselves as creators and women and thinkers. So thank you very much for this talk and this opportunity. I had a really, really wonderful time.
Thank you.
Thank
it was
you.
Fantastic to share all these thoughts in this type of context. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's very important to, like Sarmen and Martina said, to raise our voices and speak and share and exchange ideas. So how we can, create different places for everyone that are perhaps more equal, or at least to go towards that direction. Okay, we will wait for a little bit, see if we have any questions.
It's also very strange how we cannot see the people who give the questions. Maybe there's no one there.
And we're like, okay. Okay, here's one. I will translate. This is from Elsa Perez. I'm a professor at a university, and I've tried to work with my students in dancing, moving the body in moments of exhaustion in a collective way. It's been interesting. I would like to know if any of you think of something interesting or intriguing of a creative process through these types of practices.
I have a thought here. I imagine that she, right? Yeah, Elsa, I think so. Yeah, that she's giving classes through Zoom, and I think we are a little bit exhausted of Zoom. There's a new term. I don't remember. Zoom crisis. I don't remember. Anyway, but I would suggest for me, whenever I have given only one workshop through Zoom, I see, and it's been very good, but very challenging. And what I recommend is always to educate the guys, or to tell them, you need to turn on your camera and turn on your microphone. Because I think whenever we started giving these kind of classes, they have the decision. They can choose if they turn off the camera, which for me is also a way to not be present. I mean, if they go to school, they were there in the chair in the classroom. And also, if she has started doing these exercises of moving or breathing, I think breathing exercises would be great, because the breath wakes you up immediately. They should just be all looking at everybody in the gallery view, these kind of tricks that you can use. But try to do your exercises with the cameras on, because you never know. Of course, you are not next to them, but you can at least see the way in which they are sitting, the position, the sides, how they are looking at you, if they are yawning or they are stretching. I think that is very important. Try to be as close as you can with the cameras and the microphones, and because I mean, and you have the power because you say, okay, you were in university and you were present, but here is like you have another big layer, and you need to break that wall.
Yes, in a sense, trying to make the black mirror a porous membrane, if possible. I think. Martina.
Yeah, my side, I do think that keep on insisting in collective practices. It's what we have to do because it's very precious. In a moment in which we're losing these social connections, to create spaces in which you have to be there as a tiny community, it's what keeps the energy going on. So it can be, if possible, with a living presence, but as Sarmen mentioned, also to keep on insisting, finding a new way of exercising together, something collective, even using Zoom, even using whatever the internet gives us. But because that's where it's a sort of a, then you create these small society laboratories. So there we can actually see what we can do together, and we can tweak our practices. We can see what's working, what it's not working, and then the next day, you're a little bit better educated. But then you don't lose your connections, because now that everything is pushing us into our own room with just a screen, and with talking with someone else, or maybe two other three people. But what if it's like here in Berlin is plenty of people who are doing like yoga collective groups, and they're like 40 people. It's crazy. And it's crazy because it's crazy to think about it in this structure, in this virtual space. But yeah, you're doing your yoga classes, so it has to, again, we have to keep on finding a way of being a community in a new normality. That's why I really keep on doing that, because I think it's super precious.
So Elsa says thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
I love that what you just said about keeping the energy moving. Just we
Yes.
need to keep on moving. Next question. This is from Dersul, and the question is, how do you start making a piece? Is it from pure inspiration, a musical idea, or do you get inspiration elsewhere? A book, movie, personal experience, or are you trying to express a specific feeling? Salman.
Mm. I think everything, all that she mentioned, and is part of the answer. Of course, it depends. I feel sometimes I have a very personal desires. Of course, a specific maybe gesture that I want to explore, or that one day I dream. I follow my dreams as well, my daily dreams mainly, not my night dreams. And but I feel also I could have a personal desire, but at the same time that personal desire is connected to others, because I am a social being. And I feel whenever I compose or I start doing something, my main aim, I would say, is to inspire others. And I try to inspire others because I am inspired by others as well. And it can be others, meaning of course people, but as she mentioned, yeah, I think we need to cultivate our curiosity, not only in music, but with going out and walking. I mean, I get a lot of inspiration through with nature, like reading as well, but mainly, well, this pandemic specifically, with my big necessity of walking and going to the mountain, or to having to be in contact with others. But I feel it also changes, because maybe before I love visual arts, for example, and maybe in one period of my life I was very in touch with that, getting inspiration. And I think the world changes, we change, And the biggest inspiration is also to accept that we change, and that we are getting ideas from everywhere.
Martina.
So for me, it's I'm an avid music listener. I just always have music in my ears. So I also have to say that all my sort of a emotional side of my brain is really connected to listening to specific type of musical combinations, so chord sequences. So uh, it's really, I mean, my emotional brain is really connected to me listening music. My main source of inspiration is this connection. So I have, when I found like a connection with a musical idea or a musical landscape with a sort of emotion that matches the moment, for example, that's one where my inspiration kicks in. So I want to reproduce the emotion that this pieces of music is driving me to. And then, for example, I play a lot with my instruments at home, and it's simply as it is. I just keep on playing until it makes sense, and until something happens. It's a little bit vague, but actually it's what I'm doing. Yeah, all my inspiration is very much connected to sounds, every type of sounds, even noise. I mean, for example, there is this in Alexanderplatz. They're having this huge, how do you say, Bauarbeiten, so that this construction site in which there is this huge, gigantic crane that is digging a gigantic hole in the ground. And every day I pass by, and this thing just makes a huge amount of incredible noise. And this is something that it's boiling with me in my brain since many weeks. And I come home and I try to work with that. It's not the sound itself, but it's a musical idea connected to my reaction to the sound. It's a little bit complicated, but that's how it works with me.
Thank you very much, Martina. And we have a comment here. Martina, we're precisely doing a citizen laboratory in Mexico, regards, and that you will be able to see the website here in the chat, which is labsocioambiental.com. Another question from Erendira Martinez. Thank you so much. Well, it's actually a comment. Thank you so much for such an interesting reflection about how this crisis helps us to change your point of view about the role that artists can play in social life. So that's from Erendira Martinez.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's what we have.
Can I say something?
Please.
Just by reading Erendira was saying, I think a good thing is that we are realizing, of course, we had this realization before, but nowadays it's like a little bit more clear, or at least for me, is that we are all connected. Talking about we as artists or musicians, we are not in a different world than the teachers, than the yoga practitioners or yoga teachers, than the guys in the market. That we are all really in the same world, and that we have to survive to cope with this, and we get inspiration from others, and that all the things that all our actions have repercussion in others, and I think that is good. It's hard sometimes, but it's good.
Makes us more conscious, I guess.
Yes, definitely. I think this is something that has again come up to the surface very, very clear during these last months. So I think we don't have any more questions. I would like to thank you again for being here with me today. And I would like to invite our audience again to the concert, which will be on Saturday. And so we'll switch to Spanish now. I'm sorry. Las quiero invitar al concierto que será el sábado 5 de diciembre de las 20 a las 21 horas en el auditorio virtual de la Casa del Lago UNAM. Y bueno, muchas gracias a todas, a todos por estar aquí, escucharnos el día de hoy. Gracias al Centro Cultural España, Casa del Lago, Fondo Europeo para la Cultura y Instituto Italiano de Cultura en México. Muchas gracias y hasta luego. Sigan disfrutando de su día. Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Martina.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.